Hey, what is going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to rank all the weapons in Fortnite EZFN, which is Chapter 1, Season 7, with several key adjustments like no shotgun delay, burst rifle unvault, and crossbow vaulting. It is not directly comparable to Era Season 7 as there are a number of key differences in the weapon balancing. Now, I really want to get into this because I feel like this has to be discussed immediately, and the first thing is just the pump shotgun is in a ridiculous state. Normally, I'd say the green and blue pump are an A tier gun. That means like the SCAR level of power, right? Good, really solid options. Don't need a nerf. You can one shot. It's a solid choice. Because we don't have a shotgun delay, I think that's enough to put this in X tier. Because what do I define an X tier gun as being? Think day one drum gun, day one P90, day one combat shotgun after they fix the bug where the pellets didn't work correctly. This is a weapon that's like game defining, and I think that's already what this is. This is better than Season 4 double pump, because Season 4 double pump was significantly slower. Yes, it had more range, that's true, and more structure damage, which is fair, but this thing does 100 body damage, which means all you need to do is just clip people out with 2 body shots. It's very easy to use this, and this is just completely ridiculous. This is flat out ridiculous what this thing can do. This can keep up with the Season 2 double pump, honestly. It's almost as fast, but you have a damage advantage with the blue pump. It's like borderline to S and X, but I would put it X. It's just flat out ridiculous. And the spaz, I had to make a whole other tier. I think this is beyond X. It's like on the border of exiting X tier and going to Mars. Like, this is ridiculous here. Because what this gun is the draw speed is even faster than the standard pump. And because you can run 2 of them, the speed at which you can just clip people out with 2 shots is ridiculously fast. And because, the gold one is like 110 body, if you miss 1 pellet out of one of your shots, no problem. You can still clip people out. It's honestly completely ridiculous how strong double pump is. Like, this double pump here, I think would demolish the day one combat in a 1v1. This would just demolish it. Like, this would destroy the day one drum gun. This would honestly be better than Season 2 double pump. This is just ridiculous. Like this thing is probably better than the Infinity Blade, because the Infinity Blade person has 400 health. All you gotta do is hit 4 quick shots, and with double pump so fast, you can probably do that. So it's just not an acceptable scenario, and this is not a situation we want. We need these guns to at least go down to this. Realistically, we want them to drop down to look like this. This is a more reasonable balance, but this current situation is not good. Tac shotgun, though, on the bright side, hey, Tac shotgun I finally think is made A tier. It's a very solid gun now that you don't have the shotgun delay. If you can't find 2 pumps, you run pump to tac. A very solid option. Now, had double pump not existed and be so strong, pump tac would be really good. So in a vacuum, it's A tier, but against this competition, it's still kind of a joke right now. SCAR, very solid gun, A tier. Really good choice. A lot of people are gonna want to run this thing. It's a really awesome choice. If you don't know which AR to take, I recommend this one. It just works in pretty much all situations pretty well. Standard AR, same deal. It's just a little bit worse than the SCAR, B tier, but still a decent choice. And there's no problems with running this in the end game. It's still a very good gun. The FAMAS, I would not say the FAMAS is quite to the level of SCAR. I'd say the FAMAS is more in line with the lower tier standard ARs. Still a good option, and if you like this thing, you could take it over the SCAR. But I think for most of you, you're probably gonna put it a bit below. It's very good in those situations where you can quick peek, fire 3 rounds, and get back behind cover. Very good in that situation at medium range. But at long range, this thing is kind of eh. Destroying walls, kind of eh. It's just not as versatile as the SCAR, so I put it a tier below. Same deal for the standard burst, tier below the standard AR. It's not a terrible gun by any means, but it's just the same kind of problem where the versatility just isn't there. Now, the heavy AR I do think is an A tier weapon. It's a very strong gun, right up there competitive with the SCAR. You're sacrificing close range capabilities for really, really good damage at long range. This thing is insane if you have good aim. It's overall just a really solid choice, and if you can find it, I recommend you at least give it a try. Silenced AR, I'd put B tier, just a step below the standard AR and the SCAR and the heavy AR, and in line with the standard AR and the FAMAS. It's definitely a decent option. If you didn't have the damage penalty against the SCAR, it'd probably be A tier. Because you do a little less damage, the accuracy is nice, but I don't think it's really quite to the level of SCAR heavy AR. It's kind of like in between of these two while also taking a damage penalty. So it's definitely a competitive, viable choice, but it's not quite up to A tier. Infantry rifle, it's borderline between the joke tier and D. I know some people can make this thing work. It's bad. I'm not quite sure if it makes the joke. You know what? Screw it. I'm putting in the joke tier. This thing is just so incredibly bad with projectile-based system against these very powerful hit scan-based ARs. Why would you want to run this against a heavy AR? In what world does this thing make sense? Maybe if you've got really good aim with projectile weapons, you could put it to D. I could understand that argument. But honestly, on controller, it's F, because with Legacy, you're going to want to use L2 to snap on the target, and you can't lead your shot when you do that. So this thing is just honestly really bad. It's between D and F. Scoped AR, I think Scoped AR is honestly probably D. You know, in Era Season 8, once it got the buff, I think it moved up to C. It was definitely a, you know, decentish choice. I mean, it's in between C and... I honestly think it's D. I just don't think this thing is very good. Why would you run this when the heavy AR exists? Like, this thing does, like, half the damage of the heavy AR. Even at range, the heavy AR has a damage advantage. You know, the heavy AR is at least somewhat usable at close range for shredding walls. This thing can't be used to shred walls at all. It's just kind of a pointless weapon, honestly. I really wish it was better, but I just don't think it's very viable. And the same deal for the thermal. I don't think the thermal is very good either. You know, you do more damage than the scope DR, sure, but these things just aren't... They just aren't good. I mean, maybe you could push both of them up to C, which I could understand that argument if you wanted to say, hey, they're both somewhat usable. Maybe you could make that argument, but I just don't think they're quite there. Like, when you have these 4 really good ARs, I don't think the thermal or the scope DR really makes sense in this meta. Now, both SMGs I'm going to put B tier because I think they're both decent, but not insanely strong. You know, you're just trading advantages. You can take a little bit of rate of fire and magazine size here, or you could take accuracy, DPS, and reload time on the sounds. Take your pick. They're both decent choices. Unfortunately, with double pump running around, I really don't see these things as much because it's going to be hard to run an SMG when you also need to run 2 pumps. So they're decent guns, but kind of not really that useful against a secondary pump shotgun. So, you know, it is what it is. Heavy Sniper, I still think is an A tier weapon. Very solid choice. You know, does a boatload of damage, one-shots walls. It's just honestly a versatile weapon because you can use it both as sniping at long range and also as close range and box fights. So really, really good choice here. And Silent Sniper and the Hunting Rifle I also think are viable options. Are they quite to the level of Heavy Sniper? I don't think so. You know, they don't have the ability to be used at close range anywhere near as effectively. They're definitely still decent guns, and you could totally make these things work and pull off some insane plays with both. I think they're just a step below the Heavy, but by no means are they not usable. They are still viable choices. RPG, I would still say I would put A tier. It's still a very good weapon, even with the reload being quite slow. It's still very effective to have this. Your chance of finding it is near 0 since, you know, you can only get them from vending machines and supply drops. So good luck finding it, but if you do find it, I'd recommend you take it. It's a very solid gun. Grenade launcher, I'd say, is B tier. You know, it's a decent gun. As time passes, this thing I find becomes less useful as more and more, you know, building and closer range fights come into play. But it's still not a bad weapon by any means, and this thing can still be really useful. Minigun, I'd say, is B tier. You know, it's a very solid weapon, easy to use, does a boatload of damage to structures. This thing's just a structure shredder. It's a really good choice, and I definitely say it's worth trying out at least. Hand cannon, I'm honestly debating whether this is a B or C tier gun. Like, I think I would tentatively put it in B, but like, it's on the border. You know, ever since the structure damage nerf, it's just not what it was. It's still usable. It's still viable, I suppose. I'll leave it B. Not the worst option by any means, but, you know, that's just kind of the situation here. It's fine. If you like it, you can run it, but it's not insanely strong. Dual pistols is right on the border for me. Do I put it B or C? I think they're definitely early game, I'd say B, but by the end game, I think they're honestly C, simply because these things don't chain as well with pump shotgun as the other SMGs do because the draw speed is so slow. And while they do a lot of burst damage, that's true, you don't really need burst damage because if you've already fired a pump shot, if you wanted a secondary burst gun, you just fire another pump shot. And if you want a spray weapon, these things draw a lot faster and have more DPS. So it's not the worst option, but I also don't think it's insanely good either. Scoped revolver, I'd honestly probably say is D. This thing is not good by any means. You don't want to be running this. This is pointless. This is just another thermal AR, scoped AR situation where why would you run this thing? It doesn't do enough damage. You might as well run a hand cannon if you want a weapon like this. Silence pistol, I'd say, is probably C, a step above. Definitely, a decent, okay weapon. Not like super great, but it can work and it's just fine. It does the job early game. Finally, I'd say the pistol is D tier. It's not a joke tier weapon, but it's also not good either. Obviously, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So just to sum up this video, the shotgun meta is simple. You run 2 pumps. SMGs, technically the compact and silence are like competitive options, but against 2 pumps, I really don't see a reason to be running SMGs at all. You should be running 2 pumps. You need to be running 2 pumps. It's basically mandatory. AR meta is actually quite fun with the Scar, Heavy, Burst, and Silence all being viable here. Sniper weapon meta is pretty fun with Heavy Sniper, Hunting Rifle, and Silence all being viable. Structure Destroyer meta, pretty cool with RPG, Grenade Launcher, and Minigun all being viable. In terms of the pistols, I think the hand cannon's on the fringes of viability. I'd say the dualies and the Silence also can kind of work. They can kind of work in there, but the pistols overall just aren't that strong, relatively speaking. And with that, I hope you found this video interesting, and I'll catch you in the next one.